Hello guys, today I would like to tell you how to use UG to modeling a hand blender. So let's go into the left side and scroll down to the very top and right click. So I already made this 3D modeling. All the steps is recorded on the left side. So if I right click, I can show you just the one by this order. So let's right click to go into make current feature. So nothing gonna show in here. It's just data coordinate systems. If I right click and make create features the first step, in this plan, I just going to sketch and drawing this kind of rectangle. I make this rectangle because I want to uh, just mark how big of this object I want to draw. So let's hold Control W because I insert some rest image as a reference on this plane. So I just can click show. So at this moment, I show two pictures here. So you could say how this object looks like. So if I go into the second step, in this plane, if I right click to edit, and you could see repeatedly dimensions, how big is it? I give a dimension width is 110. Sorry, it's over limited. And also I can show you how what the height of the whole machine is 290. Let's close it, finish the sketch. And going to the third step, I make this outline of the juices. The fourth step, and because here is a line, so I do extrudes in here, extrude surface, apply a flat surface. So the next step, I based on this surface, flat surface, I created a dot plane in here, dot plane. So if I click this plane and set the distance between this surface and the plane is 0, I can copy the same original place apply in here. So in this plane, I'm going to sketch. I drawing this round circular sketch in here. Next step, I based on the sketch this line here. I doing the extruded the y directions totally flat surface. So next, I based on this surface to make a dot plane in here. So next, in this plane, I draw a shape here, this shape. Later, we're gonna do the throw curve mesh. So this line is the guideline. So next, the point. So how to do this point because in here I created a point. So if we go into the curve, there is a point. If I hit the point, the tab we're gonna keep intersection point. We're gonna capture a point in here. So first, I'm gonna select the object. Which object I need to select? I think is this pline because we want to get the point with this cross line and this pline. So in here, select object, we need to select this pline, and curves intersect with, we need to choose this line. So finally, we can get the intersection point in here. Next step. I don't know why there has a datum pline. I think this is a useless step. So if I just okay, let's just skip this and we can go into the next step. Okay, I know. So before this point, I will see is useless point. So let's just skip this. And I created a datum pline. So if I click the datum pline, it's based on this pline. We give it negative 70 millimeters with this directions offside. So you could get a new pline in these positions. Next, the sketch 12. I doing a sketch on this pline. So if I click into that sketch, I go into this offside curve, and you also can directly choose this offside curve. And remember, you need to set the offside number into 0, so you could directly copy this line from here. It's similar to projected this kind of line in this plane. So next, extrude. I extruded this outline because later we need to create a throw curve mesh. To doing a throw curve mesh because we want just to create half modeling, and later we're gonna do a mirror to mirror a left side. If I didn't create this, I created this surface because I can make this surface, and besides this curve mesh is keep tangency. If didn't keep tangency, after I do a mirror, you could see obvious lines between the left side and right side. So I go into the next step. In this line, I also trying to extrude by here, extruded. You could give this distance in here, but whatever is over than 1 is okay, or over than 0 is okay. So I doing this extrudes. The reason is the same as I doing in here, because I want to generating a curve mesh in here. So I need to keep this surface, and behind surface is keep a tangency relationship. Otherwise, after we created this surface and this surface, you could see obviously not very smooth on this place. So let's go into the next step. Okay, next step, if I click into that sketch, you're gonna see how I created this surface. Firstly, I need to select this line. Sometimes you need to keep a single curve and remember open the stop at intersection, and then you could select it one by one. If sometimes you didn't select a single curve, for example, I choose connected curve or tangent curve, sometimes it's gonna directly select this line until like it didn't stop in here. It's all the way go down to the very end part. So first I need to choose this group, and by click the middle mouse button, we're going to the next group. Next group, we're gonna select the opposite edge, opposite border, so this side as a second group. The third group means cross curve. You need to move your mouse selected in here, and then you can begin to choose this curve group. After you select it, just hit the middle mouse button. We're gonna choose the opposite border like this. This is the final cross curve. After we selected this original in here, you're gonna keep this position. In most situation in here, original is G0 is position. If I choose position, this surface is just a stop. It's just a stop in here. You cannot get a very smooth surface between you before extended this part and this surface. You're gonna see an obviously edge between this surface. So remember, if you want to keep a very smooth surface, let's in here choose a tangency or curvature. But sometimes curvature doesn't generating a very good surface. You need to try. Curvature is more smooth, more good surface than tangency, but it's not 100% you can generating a curvature curve. So in most situations, we just need to keep a tangency is okay. So if I selected, for example, if this edge in selected face, I need to selected this face to make a tangency relationship with this edge, this border. Sometimes you could choose a tangent face. When you click one of the face, it's gonna choose all of the tangent face. But in some situation, if we want to just select one face, or we want to select it one face one by one, let's change this into single face. You could choose one face, or you could choose one face and one by one choose another you want to. The same thing in the second face, selected face tangency. Choose here in tangency, and you're gonna choose those face to keep it make a relationship between these two surfaces. In the first cross, because we don't want to any guide surface in here, so it's at this moment just to keep in position is okay. So last cross is tangency. In here, we need to choose those surfaces to make a tangent relationship between these two surfaces. Okay. But you can obviously see this surface is not very good, but we could deal with in the later step. So going to the next step, make acrylic features. Because in the top view, we want to, this shape is keep a very straight directions. We don't want to have any angles to the outside or inside. So in here, I can just base on the line I created before and going to the extrudes. In here, I extrude with 83, that you could adjust the numbers in here to where you want to stop. You could just say the length you want to. You could make it longer or shorter. It depends on you. So going to the next step. Because I want to fix this kind of unsmooth surface, so let's go into this plane, this plane, okay, and on this plane I doing the sketch 17. On sketch 17 I just created these two lines can cover the surface you don't want to, the surface you want to modify it in later step. Let's exit the sketch. In next step, I do trim shades. Where is trim shades order? If you go into more, here is a trim shades in here. Let's go into the trim shades. So in target, select the shades body, we need to select this surface. And boundary, we need to select it before I created these two lines. And remember, default is normal to face. If you keep a normal to face, it cannot cut this way. So let's keep it along vectors. Along vectors, we're gonna choose Y. If it's pop up to ask you if currently it's doing the current dimensions, it's okay. But if it didn't, you can just click drop down and choose YC, because you could see Y in here. We need to cut in these directions, right? So in here, remember last time when you enter the sketch, where you click, if you click on this area, in here, you're gonna choose this cut. If you choose a keep, it will keep this surface but deleted the rest part. But if before you mouse just click on here and here, you need to click the keep to keep this two part, and later it's gonna throw this part. Let's go into this step, it's bridge. So how do a bridge curve? We need to go to the curve. In here has a bridge curve. Bridge curve is very useful curve, especially when we do a surfacing modeling. So I would like to regenerating the curves in here. So let's click inside. So first we need selected one curve that we want to. So let's select this curve. And remember in here, it's better if you can keep a single curve and stop at intersection. So you can just click here if you have a line in here. If you keep in stop at intersection, it's automatically gonna stop in this point. So second selected curve, we need to select this curve. And start and let's keep it a tangent. If you go in a position, connection part gonna be very sharp corner in here. So let's keep the tangency or curvature or flow. But normally let's just keep the tangency, as well as the end you need to keep it tangency to make sure these two lines connect to each other very smoothly. Okay, let's hit. Okay, so we're gonna generate a new curve here. Let's go into the next step. The same thing. Like you're gonna regenerating a new curve by these two curves. If I click inside, first I choose this curve and second I choose this curve. A new curve gonna generating here, but it's not obviously because this curve is too close to the original curves. So keep in mind when you choose to do a new curve mesh, just to remember you choose the correct curve that you created. So let's go into the next step. In Extrudes, based on the new curve, bridge curve I generating, I just extruded this two curve to help me regenerating a new surface, and I can keep a tangent relationship between each surface. So if I go into this step, I generating a new surface. You could say this surface very smooth connected by surrounding surface. So I can go through this surface. So first I choose this line, second this line, third this line, and last this line. Each of the surface I needs to do a tangent with surrounding surface I created before. So I'm gonna hate this by click Control plus B, and it just make very clear to you. Otherwise, you're gonna have the question why the surface cannot connected each other not very good. So in this view, you could see this surface and this surface is very smooth between each others. So let's go into this sketch. Also, I extruded this line and this line. I'm gonna regenerating this surface because I find this surface in here is not very smooth, and I want to regenerating a new surface. So in next step, I generating a new surface by using throw curve mesh, and also keep a tangency on unless this part, except this part in here, I don't necessarily to give a tangency in here because there is no near surface in here. And to do this order, remember is at home and surface throw curve mesh. So next is cell. So next is seal. Seal means because in here before, if I going to make if I go into this step, you could hold Control B, and you're gonna see this surface is separately. So after I do a cell, I click Control B, and you could see this surface become one. How to do a cell is going to a menu and insert. In combine, there has a cell. Cell means it can solving the some surface become a one surface. So if you have a two surface, it's gonna see a obviously gap in here. You can't solving this because you could obviously see the gap in here. But in one situation, you could also adjust the tolerance. The default tolerance is 0.01. It's very small. If you give a 1 or 2 or 10 or something like this, and even though there has a small gap in here, you could also solving them together. So going to the next step, because before when I doing those sketch, I just hided this one. So I created a new datum coordinate system, which is the same as this. Actually, if I didn't create it at here, I just can visible this datum line. It's gonna the coordinate system gonna also shows in here. So let's go into this step. I created so in this in this spline, I created rectangles. So in this 27 sketch, I based on ZX spline, I draw this rectangles. In 28th, if I go into this step, I extruded by click this order. I extruded. The extruded needs is negative 60, or if you give a 60, you need to opposite this direction, reverse the directions. The distance needs to cover your curve mesh, the surface you created. Otherwise, you cannot do the trim in the futures. So let's hit OK. Let's go into the trim body. Where is the trim body? You could obviously trim body is in here. The target I need to select the body I want to trim. So the body is this rectangles, and the tools is selected the face or plane. So in here, let's choose a face or plane. So you could choose this mesh, the curve mesh, the surface you created before. Otherwise, if the new plane means you're gonna based on some datum plane to make a new plane. So in here, let's keep a face or plane. And it's gonna automatically, if I go into the trim body, okay, it's gonna trim. It's gonna keep this solid part, this part, and trim outer part. But in some situations, if you want to reverse it, and you just need to choose the reverse directions, so it's gonna keep the outer solid part, and the inner part is gonna become a hollow, gonna remove, right? So in trim body, I got this solid surface. So if I Control B and move your mouth in the surface until it's showing three dots, and let's hide the shaped body. Okay, you're gonna see the solid part you created is the same as the shades before. So next, because I hide the coordinate systems, so I created a new one. Actually, I don't necessarily to create a new one. I just go back to show it is okay, because this one is the same. So if I go into the next step, sketch, in ZX spline, I created this kind of sketch. If you see this reference picture, I'm gonna cut this shape from this main bodies. I keep this line horizontal directions, and also I need to give a radius in here. The radius, if I go in radius dimensions, and I can calculate is 25. Let's finish the sketch. So in next step, I go into the extruded the sketch. If I click into it in here, I choose to symmetric value. Symmetric value means it's gonna equals to extruded on the left side and the right side. So in this scenario, in this situation, you just need to give a specific numbers. So it's gonna extrude it to the left 60s, to the right and also 60s. So in here, boolean, let's keep it subtract. Subtract means I created this kind of block, be manners by the body. You want to move it some parts by using this new shape you created. So if I selected curve, I need selected this curve. In select the body, I need to select it the solid part I created before. So let's hit it. Okay, so you're gonna got this shape. In this situation, let's just hit Control W. I'm gonna hide the shapes body I created before, and also let's keep in here. So you're gonna see more clearly how the shape be minus by the body, another body I created. So if I go into this step, I just go into the Z X plane. In this plane, I do a sketch. I created a horizontal lines. Later, I'm gonna based on this line to extrude the surface, and based on the surface, I'm gonna create a reference plane. So next, as I said, I based on this line to do extrudes a surface. I got a flat surface in here. So next is based on this surface, I go into a datum plane, set the distance is 0. So you could copy this plane in here. Next, because you're gonna say from this picture here is a kind of a flat edge here. So in here, I just seeking. Where is seeking? If you go into a menu, insert, there has offset scale. There has a seeking. If you click a seeking and set the distance is 2, it's gonna based on the base surface extruded to with the normal direction. Keep in mind, when you're doing a seeking, the direction is always the normal directions. So I can keep the boolean in now, or I can choose a unit with this part, because this part we can check this. So this flat edge belongs to the upper part. So in here, I could choose a unit to combine these two parts, but I can also do a later by choose a unit order. So in this moment, let's just keep it now. So let's go into the next step. In the sketch 37, in the so in XY plane, I doing a sketch in here. I doing a sketch here. Next, I extruded this the sketch. Why I need to extrude it? Because if you go into a top view, you face to the top view, you're gonna see here the shape is not very straight outlines here. I want to keep it very straight outlines. So that is why I doing the sketch and trying to extrude it. And in extruded, let's doing the boolean is a subtract, and the selected body, I choose that body I want to minus from this body. So this line is based on this plane to extrude it. If I didn't want to extrude it from this plane, I just give an offside distance to 100. So it started to extrude from 100 millimeters from this base plane and ends up at 185. So actually this height in here is just 85 by 185 minus 100, right? So if I go into these steps, because before I just didn't combine these two parts, so I need to do the boolean one by one. First, I booleaned minus trimmed this block, and if I go into the this step, I trim the below bottom part, beneath part. So keep it. If you go into the top view, it's going to become a straight surface here. So if I go into the point 41, because before I created this datum plane, so in here I created point. Remember how we could create the point? Just go into a curve and click the point. So I'm going to the point, choose the tab to intersection point. The selected object, I need to select this plane. And the curve to intersect with, I need to select this line, this edge in here. So it's going to automatically capture a point, intersection points in here. We got this and hit it OK. So let's go into the next step. In unit, I'm trying to combine these two parts because these two parts belongs to one piece. So let's hit it OK and keep it tolerance is the default. Let's move to so next I do a sketch 45. Next I do a sketch 45 in this plane. Because if I take the reference pictures, I want to create this kind of right part, and I can give a radius. The radius is 11.8, so I can create this kind of shape. Next step, I use these lines to split this body. And remember how to do this? Let's go into the home. In more, there has a split body in here. So going to next step, sketch 47. I created this line because if I take a reference, I want to cut in here. So let's just exist the sketch. Next, split body. By using this line, I split this one body into two bodies, the bottom yellow piece and upper green piece. Let's go into this step, sketch 49. In 49, I do the sketch on this plane, and I created this shape. So in offside surface 15, I offsided based on the solid object I created before, just to copy one surface in order we need to use this surface to trim or create some object in the futures. So next, if I go into Extruded 51, remember before we created this kind of sketching here. So in Extruded 51, I'm trying to extrude it and make sure it covers this object. So before, if I notice here, if I notice the details of these pictures, and this has a curve radius in here. But before, if I just stay in the step 15, here is a very sharp corners. We need to trim it to become a radius corners. So I create this such sketching of sketch 51 and trying to extrude it by boolean subtract this objects to create this kind of corner. So if I go into the trim shapes 52, the target is this shade's body. So I remember in 50s I copied this surface before, and the bottom I used this object the edge who trimmed it by a 51 to cut on this surface, to trim this surface. And in region, I need to select it to keep. So I got this small surface here. I got the small surface here. The next step, Extruded 53. I directly selected the Extrudes, and in here, I don't create any sketch, and I just in here, default single curve, and I change to a face curve. So you can select this face and directly extrude it with the specific direction, like this direction, X directions, with the two distance. And in here, boolean, you're gonna keep unite. Select the body, I choose the bottom part, because from this reference image you could see this part become a one piece. So let's hit OK. And you become these parts is completely one piece. If I hit Control B, I can definitely hide this part, right? But remember, in Extrudes, you could only select this one body. You cannot select this several. See, if I want to select this part, you can't. In this step, you can just select it one piece. So let's do this first. Let's unite these two pieces first, and later we could, by using unite again, to unite a lots of parts together. So if I go into next step, off surface, because I created, remember last step, I extruded the two distance, the thickness is 2, so we have the surface behind the outside surface. So I can directly copy that surface by enter the offside distance is 0. To create this kind of surface, just in order in the future we want to use this surface to trim something or create something. So let's go into the next step is unite 55. So at that step, click into that. Before I just unite these two pieces, I cannot do all together in extrude order. So in this step, it's not limited. You could choose this part, another part. It's become a one completely piece. A tolerance, keep in mind is keep default is okay. So if I go into next step, offside face. So in this step, if I go into offside face, so rotate the view, I can see very clearly. I offside the surface to distance. Let's hit OK. Because you don't want to this piece and the yellow piece have any collisions. So if I go into before, you can see it's overlapping each other, it's collisions. So I need to cut it by choose offside face. Notice this offside face, this is not offside surface. So to do this order, we need to go into menu, insert, in offside scale. Let's remember to choose offside face, not offside surface. The next step, unite 57. I unite this part with below part to be one piece. You can't see any divided lines between these two objects. It's become a one totally piece. So let's go into the next step, extruded. Remember before we created the surface in here. So we can directly go to the extrude by selecting the shaped edge. So if we have a surface face come from a solid part, we could choose face edge. But at this moment, we just have a shade in here. So instead, we need to choose a shade edge. Let's give a distance 3. Unite selected body. We want to combine with this piece. So let's hit OK. So going to the next step, we're going to sketch 59. Because if I take a reference of this piece, this line divided this object into two different parts. So I need to create this kind of dividing lines here by creating the sketch in this plane. If I go into the sketch 60s, the reason why in this plane, I created this sketch, because if you rotate its face, if you want to, if you rotate and face to this direction, so you could see this surface here is not the same. The reason I created this is to make has the same border distance. We could directly offside the sketch with this line, right? Next, if going to extrude 61, I extruded this shape and Boolean subtract to the solid part, and I can trim on this edge to make the border very perfectly. So if I go into next step 62, because you see this reference pictures, so this line here has a distance with this line. So I need to, in this line, doing sketch to create such sketch here. Oh no, I am not created with applying by a sketch. So because this is offside in face, so I'm going to the curve in offside curve. Choose this one, offside curve. So basically you selected this edge here. Offset distance you give 3 is suitable. And face or plane you want to select it on. So we choose this green surface here. We choose this surface become a green color. Let's hit OK. So we got this 3D sketch here on that surface. So going to the next step, I created this kind of horizontal line because if you say this, because if you see these pictures, here also has a vertical lines here. So we need to, on the 2D plane, we need to create this kind of sketch in this plane, Going to the next step, projected curve. I projected sketch 63 directly. So this curve directly to the objects I choose these two objects. And remember along vectors, if its default is along face normal, we need to change to along vectors and choose it by the x directions. Remember the arrows is to face the x directions. Okay. Let's go into the next step, bridge curve. So in bridge curve, because before we got the curve projected in here, the the horizontal curves here, we also got offside lines on the surface. So we need to go into bridge curve. Remember where is bridge curve is in here? Curve, tab, bridge curve. Firstly, we're gonna choose one, and second, we're gonna choose another curve. Here, start it, and we need to keep in tangent. Let's hit OK. You could also adjust it if you are not very satisfied with the curvature of these curves. I can drag to subtle adjust it of this curve. And next, in sketch 66, in this plane, I created a sketch because if I take a references, we're gonna see here has another split lines here. So I created this curve. by using the sketch I already created last step, I doing a split bodies. A split body, let's go home and there has a trim that has split bodies. You split it this completely shape into the two parts. Split body. You could also define in here. Define the directions by choosing the X arrows here. X directions. Next is so I'm predict these curves into this plane, make it into 2D sketch. So I got this 2D sketch by projected. So where is projected curve? It's in curve, projected curve, projected on this 2D plane. Next, split bodies. By using this 2D plane I created in last step, split the body of this piece into two different parts. I using a different colors marked it here. In sketch 17, in this plane, the plane 11, the step 11, I created the plane. I created such sketch. Next, I extruded this sketch. Remember the distance started from the baseline 80 and ends up at 128. Subtract selected this body. Click OK. So before these two objects is very close to each other. There's no gap between them. I need to create such kind of gap visually because there has the holes in here. I need to create it in the future step. So I need to make a hollow in here. So next, sketch 72. Because in the future I need to create a curve mesh surface, so I created the guidelines in here. If you see this reference pictures, I create a guideline of this surface, concave surface. So if we're going to the next step, offside in face. I got offside this curve by a distance 1.5 on this surface I choose. So now it's become a green color. Because if you see these pictures, the small flat edge surface here, I need to create it. So in next step, so let's finish the sketch. Going to next step. So in this step, I doing offside face. Notice this is not offside surface, not offside face. I need to create more space in here. So I offside just the 1 millimeters to outside directions, kind of minus a kind of materials on this block, this piece. So you're gonna get more gaps here. So next, I created another plane in this surface. In sketch 76, I offside with this curve. The distance I remember is 5 millimeters. Based on the new plane we already created in here. Say if I click this sketch, it's showing on this plane. Next step, I do a bridge curve. Bridge curve is in curve. It's in curve, bridge curve. From that curve I created, connected to the before this offside in face curve. I connected them together by a tangent relationship. So in this sketch, in this surface, I created this kind of guideline. In 79, I extruded this edge to help me do the curve mesh surface in the futures. And you can just give a obviously distance like a 20, 10, whatever you want. And in extruded 80, in this side, I just trying to extruded the curve I created in last step. And in extruded 81, I also extruded this surface in order I can use it in the futures. In sketch 22, because I feel this yellow part is too close to the edge, so I need to trim it a little bit to narrow it. So I kind of, in this plane, I created a such sketch. And to order to get this line, you could also do the offside from the edge, right? Let's finish the sketch and go into the next step. The next step, I doing the sketch 82 I created and projected to the extruded 81, projected the curve on this surface because I want to create it a shape which is smaller than the yellow part and then help you to do the concave surfacing here, because concave shape you cannot just stop in the yellow object edge, which gonna lower than the edge of the yellow part. So in bridge curve, I do a bridge curve with one line in here. Another line I just created on this surface before. And let's go into the next step, is throw curve mesh. So I created a new surface here by choosing First choosing this side curve, and second choose this side curve. Third, I need to choose the guideline, and first I need to choose another side guideline. By some surface, I need to give a tangent relationship with surrounding face I created before. So in trim body, I using the throw curve mesh I created to trim this green part. So if I hided this kind of surface, sorry, that has a mistake we need to fix in the future step. So if I go into the thickening, we are thickening based on this surface thickening and do the unite with this green part. So if you didn't see this part, so if you didn't see this light green part and this dark green surface is perfect showing to you. Later we're gonna fix this place. So I just doing a replay face in here. So before, if I go into last step, you're gonna say additional face in here, and well, I can go into a home, and in here has a replay face. If I hit the replay face, and I face to replace, I need to choose this small piece, and replacement face, I need to choose a surrounding face. And when the distance just hit it 0, it's just keep it 0. So if I hit it OK, nothing gonna happens here. So we will see this replay face, it doesn't have any functions in here. So let's go into, okay, oh sorry, I need to make a current features. You could see when we doing the replace face, and this small face just replaced by a surrounding face, and this small face just disappeared it. But we could use another way to deal with this piece in the futures. At this moment, let's just keep this. So if we're going to this sketch 89, gonna face at that directions. In this line, we're doing a sketch, 2D sketch here. We're going to extrude. Okay, we extruded it and cut it on this light green piece to remove before additional part in here. Let's just cut it. Because this is just showing the appearance, outside look to the user. It's not for manufacturers, just for render or something, showing your customers. So it doesn't matter how inner part is looks like. So at the moment, just can do like this way. But if you doing manufacture, engineer stuff, we can't do like this way. We need to make sure each part combine them perfectly. And next, so before, I feel this yellow part is too low, but I can't directly change to increase the height of the yellow part. There is a way to achieve this. So we can just, by going to a home, here's a delete face. We delete this corner directly to how it looks like currently. In next, we're doing offside face. Remember where is menu and insert offside face. Offside face, we can offset with the distance you want. Let's give it 3.5. So next, you could again to doing a new radius by click edge blend here. So we give a 10 on this corner. And we're going to throw curve mesh. Okay, so in this step, because previously this edge not looks very good, so I regenerating this kind of surface to help it to become the surface in here become a more smooth. So firstly I choose this curve, outer side curve, and second I choose this curve, the cross curve. Firstly I just choose these curves here, and the fourth curve I choose this part. Because this distance is quite small, so in some situations not necessary to create a surface extrude to make a tangent. So in here, let's just keep all the edge has a position, a G0 is enough. And let's keep a tangent as a default. Hit OK. So next, let's go into step 96. I do a thickening order. Thickening order is in menu, insert, offside scale, thickening. In thickening, I based on that throw curve mesh I created, offside 1 mm to one direction and 1 mm to another direction. In boolean, I do subtract the selected body is this gray body, so I kind of minus 1 mm from the gray body. Let's hit OK. So if I drag to this view, you could say here, I minus this block from the gray part. So you're gonna do a next step. In this step, I based on that inner surface to give an offside 1 mm. Boolean in here to the unite. Selected body is also the green body to fill the gap in here. So this time if I click Ctrl B to hide this surface, you could say this surface now is very smooth from this side to another side. So let's go into the next step, offside surface. So in offside surface, I based on this surface, I offside 0.4 distance to this directions. You could see the offside surface in the middle. And then I do extend shades. I do extended shades in here. So before nothing, and I do extend shades to extend it that much by 5 mm on this edge. Next, sketch 100. At this moment, I do another sketch in here. Because I want to give a gap between this yellow part and upper part. In next, I do a projected to project it on this surface eye, offside surface eye created before. On sketch 102, on this plane, I created another sketch in here. So you could see the sketch is in here. So in split body, next step, I use this line to split this body, let's hit OK, into these two parts. the bridge curve I created is from this edge to this edge I already projected in here, because if I just hide this surface, you could see this edge in here is not completely. My aim is to create a new surface in here, to make this kind of small surface can go along until the end. So next, sketch 105. So in here, I create in this plane, I created another guideline in here. If I drag a little bit, you could realize why I created this guideline. Because I want to generating is a surface edge in here. Let's click finish, and throw curves. I just to go into a surface throw curve mesh, I created such mesh curve mesh. Next, seeking. I sected this surface to two directions by 0.2 each side. Let's do a substance to this body. Trim this orange body I selected. Hit OK. So I'm gonna totally got this very smooth surface here. Next, based on this curve I created, I offset in one direction by 0.3 distance and unit with this part again. Let's hit OK. So this time, if I Control B, hide some shades, you will see this part has a very smooth edge in here. Let's go into the next step, replacement face. So why I do this? So if you go back to last step, you will see this is a very mess in here. Based on I create another surface in here causing these accident problems. So I just click replace face. You could choose from here. If I click here, selected face is one of the very mess faces here. Another, I'm gonna select this face, surrounding face, and keep the distance 0. After I do the replacement face, you're gonna see it's become better than before. Next step, we're going to sketch 110. Seems nothing happens here. Maybe I just created it in the history and it can't do any helpful for the whole models. So let's just finish the sketch and jump into the sketch 111. So in 111, in this plane, I just create a kind of 2D sketch here. So in Extruded 112, I extruded this part, but started with 63 from the base plane and ends up at 180. Do the boolean subtract the selected body at this part. I trimmed it this part. Okay, so you can see this gap in here. There's no collision between each part. Because this is just the ID, show the appearance outside look to the users. So it doesn't matter what happens in the site. But if you want to do some engineer work for mass productions, no way, we can't do like this methods. So next, I'm going to replace the face. And next, I'm going to sketch 140. So in this sketch, in this plane, I created a 2D sketch. If you go inside of the sketch, you could see I make this small details here. By created some sketches here. I create the sketches, and this sketch I doing the parts and curves along with this line. Let's finish the sketch. And next I doing a projected. I projected the sketches on this surface, In here, if I just hit Control B and I hide this part, you're gonna see a very small edges here. So in the replacement face, if I make a correctly features and I hit Control B and I just replace beneath the surface, all the way attach it to this surface. So if it's the same as this surface. So in 170s, I just combine this piece with this piece together, and tolerance is just keep a default. Let's hit the OK. So this piece can totally become a one completely piece here. So next, let's go into a sketch 180s. I just created the rest of the parts and sketches here. Let's click finish. And then I do the same way by projected those new sketches on this curve, right? So let's make currently features. The body, I just Control T. If I hit Control T, and in here, let's try a distance and give a 0 distance. And in here is copy original. You could just copy this surface one more. Let's just keep it. We could use it in the futures. So if I click on make currently features, trim shades by moving in here, trim shades we could do in here. So it's selected shades body. It's the body 112 and the border rate. Let's select it the sketch that I created before and projected on this surface. And let's discard because I just click it on surrounding area. So I need to discard surrounding area by keeping these lines area here. So let's OK. So I just keep it this area. Let's go into the trim shades 122. So the same way, I could just leave this area and this area here. So at this moment, let's do a thickening. Remember where's the thickening? It's menu, insert, offside scale, thickening. So let's just click the last thickening order to make currently features. Wait for minutes, and you could say I based on the surface lifted, I offside 0.3. Boolean here is choose a unite with the main bodies, so I can got this part with the textured line textures on the surface. So next, available this step, edge blind. I do a small blend in here, just a small. If I click into that sketch, it's just 0.1 radius. Let's go into a sketch 140. I want to begin to make this handle piece. So on this plane, I created this sketch. This distance in here, maybe I remember is 10 millimeters, but you need to keep this half circular a little bit far away from original circular shape a little. So just to finish the sketch, in sketch 141, in this surface, I do a sketch to I created a guideline curve here, but this curve I create additional horizontal line become a dotted line. You need to keep these two line is tangent with each others, right? Finish. So in next step, I'm going to sketch 140. Okay, it is just this curve. Let's go into next step. Next step in this plane, I created a sketch because I noticed in here I don't want to divide this two piece like this way. So I created this sketch and then I do a split borders. The split borders I do with the y directions here. By split this piece I choose it is become orange colors. So I split it these parts. If I hit Control B, I split it in these two pieces. And next, I'm gonna do a unit with these two pieces to become one completely shape, right? So in the sketch 155, I do another sketch on this surface. I also created a delted horizontal line to make a tangent, keep a tangent. In 146, I created a curve and point, intersection points by using this plane, datum plane, and this curve. I captured it, a point, intersection point in here. If we're going to 147, on this plane, I created this section curve. Also, I need a straight line to keep a tangent relationship with this curve. In 148, extruded this curve we created before with some distance. So in Extrudes, I'm trying to based on this sketch before I created to extruded this surface, and then in next step I make this throw curve mesh this surface. But I notice on here this surface is not very smooth. It's a little bit of twist. So the next step, I use this curve I created before to split the surface first, and then in sketch 151, in this plane, I created these two lines, exit the sketch, and next step, trim sheets. I used this two curve and trim this sheet's body in here because I just click this area. So in this region, I need to discard. Oh no, I create this area. So in this area, I need to discard this part. So I hit it OK. You could see this surface by removed it by these two lines I created before. So I used the throw curve mesh to create a new surface here, and I choose the tangent to each of the surface, except this edge. I just keep positions. I hit OK. So now if you check the surface, it's very smooth than before. So in 154, this step, I'm trying to solving 1, 2, 3, these three faces together. So if you click this, it shows the completely surface here. So next step, in this plane, I created the outline of this shape by using the offside curve, and you need to adjust the distance just to keep them 0. So you could just copy this line from the edge. In next step, I'm trying to extrude this sketch, and in offside surface, I copy one surface. By using offside surface, you need to set the distance to 0. So next step, I'm solving this surface with this throw curve mesh surface and this surface together. So if I click the solve order, you could see the whole surface here. So the next step, I use a trim body in here to trim that solid blocks. So I got this solid shape followed by this throw curve mesh surface. So trim body order is in here. So next 160s. In this plane, I just created a vertical line. Next step, I use a split body. By using this line, split this purple block into two different pieces. If I hold it, the Control B, I can just tilt that is two different part, right? So next, going to sketch 162. 162 is this vertical line. I created this vertical line is horizontal lines here. So this is ready for creating the bridge curve. I'm going to bridge curve it in bridge curve. So I created this bridge curve by using the sketches I created before and keep the start and end with the G1 tangent relationships. So in edge blind, in here, I give is 10 radius in here. Point 155. I just don't know where I created this point. maybe I can check into next step. So in point 155, I just in here I created this point by click the point and intersection point. I captured this point in here. So and also in this step, because I have this curved it by using a bridge curve, so I need to extrude this curve. So in throw curve mesh, I made this curve. If I clicked it, you could see the first line, instead of I can choose just a point, and second I choose this line, third cross line is this line, fourth is this line. So except the first primaries, I keep a position, and also the first cross is position. The rest of these two, I just keep a tangents to a surrounding surface. One is in here, one is in here. Okay, let's click OK. So on the next step, offside, I just keep offside the surface by enter a distance 0. I want to copy the surface. And the next, I do a solving. So I solving this surface together because I want to trim this block. If I just using this area to trim this block, I can't achieve this. If I go into next step, I trimmed this surface, right? And I go into next step is edge blend. So in here, I doing an edge blend in this surface by 8 radius. Next is 172. I created this vertical lines here. And the next, I use this vertical lines to split this block into two. If I hit it Control B, you could see this one block, this is another block by divided by using that line. So if I go into the next step on this surface, I created a sketch in here. Because later we're gonna generating a throw curve mesh surface here. So bridge curve, I created a bridge curve based on this line and this line. Keep a tangent. So I extruded this bridge curve a little bit. And the next step, unite is trying to unite these two parts again into one completely block. So split lines. I don't know why, because it's redo them. So I think I'm gonna just delete these two orders here. And let's go into this order to build a throw curve mesh by using these two lines and these two cross lines here. If I go into here, you could say this is the first line with a tangent with this surface, and the second is a tangent with this surface, and cross line here, two cross lines in here. Trim bodies. I used the throw curve mesh to trim the purple blocks. Next, sketch 180s. I doing offside sketches in here. on this circular surface. Next, I extruded it with some draft. So extruded with the 0.5 distance millimeters, and at the same time I do a boolean to subtract the selected body is the yellow part over, and trying to give a drafted angle is 45 angle, so you could got these shapes here. And next is a sketch. So on this surface, I'm doing a sketch of these patterns, right? You could create the sketch by some pattern curve functions. And the next extrude, I'm trying to extrude this sketch with a 10 millimeters, and I sometimes do the subtract with this yellow part, hit OK, and the sketch, because when I finish this extrude, for some reason, I can't cut this piece. So instead of fix the sketch, you don't very clear where you need to fix, and let's to give another redo a sketch, just focus on this part. So I could, in next step, I could individually use this sketch to cut on the yellow part. So next stage is edge blend. Edge blend, I give a radius on the edge by 4 millimeters. And next is also edge blend. Let's give a 0.5 to each of the corner. Next is sketch 189. So if I click in here, in the center of the shape, I have a circular sketch. In next step, I need to extrude the sketch. If you take the reference to see these pictures, you could see I doing this part, extruded part, by giving a 120 millimeters. And next, do a sketch. I do a sketch on these circular surface directly, and also I give a 45 degree to these rectangles. Next, extrude. I extruded it to 75 millimeters, something like this. And next, I do a radius on the corner by giving 5 millimeters on each corner. And next is the sketch. So also on this surface, I redraw new sketches that I want to remove from this block. So again, I do extrude it to cut on this block shape. And next is edge blend. I give a 2 millimeters on each edge to make it not very sharp anymore on this corner. And next, I'm gonna go into a shell functions. Shell, if I go into a home, here's the shell functions, right? And I click on this surface I want to remove it. I click on this side, one side, two side, three sides, and four sides, and then you could got this shell shape. I'm going to the next step is unite. I unite. If I click this, I'm unite this part and this part together. So this column and this shape together. And next, I hit Control T. I hit Control T, and in this I change to angle. and you need to give a direction like a vertical directions and also specific axis point. We need to hit it. We need to hit the center in here, and you need to copy origins and tap a 45-degree. So you could got these 45 rotate blocks, and later just click on Extruded 192 and trying to hit Control B to hide this part. And next, unite. I'm united these two pieces together because before, for some reason, I just split them. So I need to redo a unite of them. And next is offside the curve. Offside the surface. I offside the surface by 1 millimeters to the inner directions. I hit OK. So this is two masks in the scenario. Let's go back to last step. And if I hide it, if I click Control W, I would like to hide the shaped body, the curve body, sketch, and atoms. Okay, so I'm going to the offside curve, and you won't see happens anything, but if I hit it Control J, and selected this purple part, hit OK, I just give a translucent here, okay? And then you're gonna see offside curves I created right now is a 1 millimeter distance from this surface. So in next, a sketch. I created this sketch because I want to create it some shapes on this surface. I just created on this plane is 2D sketches, finish, and then I do the trim shades. Trim shades is in more, and the trim shades you could find in here. So trim shades. I also needs to hit Control J to make this party is also a translucent, so you could see what's gonna happen inside. So I using the sketch I created, the sketch, to trim the surface I created from here, and it's remove those parts and keep this orange part. And this time, if I face these directions, I created this sketch in a 2D plane with these directions. And I'll also do a trim shades. Let's use the sketch I created to trim that shades into this part. And next, I got the surface I want, and then based on the surface, I do a thick with a 4.5 thickness to outside directions. Let's hit OK. And in this step, in Unite, I do a subtract. So if I hit it in subtract, you could see the target is this blue part, and tools I selected this part. So when I hit it OK, you could see I have a cut on this surface. Let's do thick again. So I do a thick again with 4.5. At this time, I directly do a subtract with this body, the purple one. Now it's become an orange. So when I hit it, it's also caught some shape on the top surface. So we totally got this surface. And the next step, because we want to angle the surface here is not a totally vertical surface. So this step I doing offside in face. So I could go into curve, offside curves in face here. I do a 1 millimeters on this surface, 1 millimeters, and also 1 millimeters in here. Next, bridge curve is a curve, bridge curve here. Bridge curve, and I created the bridge curve based on this curve and beneath curve. Let's keep a tangent. Let's hit OK. And next, I using this bridge curve, projected the curve on those surface, so I could got this projected surface on those surface. So let's go into 270, 230. 13 is I directly use the line, which is the 3D sketch. I hit it one point and another point connected this line here, and another line is in here. I directly choose the line and hit it one point and another point to create a 3D sketch. And then because I found this edge has some problems, so I just based on surrounding line to recreate the new bridge with a tangent. And then I do a throw curve mesh to generating a surface like this way. Next, I do a trim body by using throw curve mesh trim on the upper part, so you could got this very angled surface here, and also do a trim on the bottom part with the angled surface. Perfect. And next, unite functions. I unite those parts together to become a one completely part. And in sketch 220, in this plane, I created this shape because if you see the reference pictures, we want to create this shape here. Hit the finish and then project it. You're gonna project this sketch on this surface, right? And then you're gonna do offside the surface by keep the distance is 0. You're gonna copy the surface totally. The next trim sheet, you're gonna keep this surface here by removing rest of the part. And then you're gonna do a thickening one to thick this with a 1 millimeter to subtract with this part, and then offside the curve. So go back to the thickening. So if I hit the Control B to hide the surface here, you're gonna see we already achieved this shape here, right? So next, offside curve. I also gonna do an offside surface with a zero direction, zero distance, and next I on this plane. So on XY surface, XY plane, I created this sketch. And next, I'm gonna extrude it to a panel. And then on that panels, I do sketch on this panel. I do a rectangle sketch on this panel. And then I projected this curves on that curved surface directly. I got this very weirded shape with a very sharp corner. And next, I use this curve to trim the surface I created before, and I left it this block surface. Next, I will do the sketch. On this plane, I do a vertical sketch. And by using a trim sheet, I use a vertical line to trim this surface into, I trimmed it this very weirded sharp corner. And then because we have this, let's hide this surface. So because we have this surface here, so we can do thick. In two directions, I thick them. And in here, I do subtract the selected body is this purple one. So I can go, so if I hide this surface, I can go this shape. And next is edge blend. I give an edge blend to this corner. The blend, the data is 6 millimeters. Next is I do a chamfer to this corner, to this edge. The chamfer is at home, and then you could choose a chamfer in here. Next is offside the surface. So I offside this surface with a 5.5 distance outside. And then I go into a curve. There has an offside curve in surface. I give a distance is 2 millimeters towards the center on this surface. And then I extruded face edge. I need to choose a face edge and extrude it with 10 millimeters towards this directions. And then you could see because if I just drag to this direction, so you could see this not reached this line. So I need to offside the face by click menu, insert offside scale, offside face. Let's can give it 8 or 6 or whatever you want. So I created a new datum coordinate system. Actually, I don't necessarily to be created because I could choose it from before coordinate systems. And in next trim body, so I used this XY plane to trim this surface to make it reached this line. Next, replace face. I use a replace face to replace this face into that surface I created before. Replace face is just in Home tab and replace face here. And next is offside, because I want to move the surface close to the center by 1 millimeter. And then if I hide this surface, you could give edge blends into 0.5 millimeters on this edge. Next, offside surface. I just offside copy this surface by using offside surface to give a 0 distance. Next is sketch 246. On this plane, 2D plane, I draw a rectangles by using these types of rectangles. And next, trim shades. I use this plane to trim the offside surface I created before and left this part and thicken. And then I'm thickening this to inner directions with 0.5 distance, and subtract selected body is this part. And I'm Control B to hide these shades. Next is edge blend. I give it a 5 millimeters to this edge. And next, draft. I give a 45-degree drafted, and select a stationary face is this face, and face to draft is this edge face. And then next step, I based on this surface to do thickening with 2 direction. Each direction I give 1 millimeters, and boolean here is just to keep a now. Offside surface. Next, I kind of shrunk this parts, the size of this part by 1 millimeters. And next is I created this kind of rectangle shape on a 2D plane in here. Next, I extruded this 2D plane and trimmed this block by selected boolean subtract with this piece. Edge blend, I give a blend 5 millimeters on the edge of this button. Subtract, I do in here unite, I change to subtract and try to trim this purple block. Offside surface is I copied a surface by using offside surface to give a 0 distance. Next, I also Control T to copy one more surface by choosing distance and give a distance in zeros by using copy originals. You could get one more face in here. Next is sketch 259. I created a 2D sketch in the top plane. Next, I using this sketch to trim the surface I created before and we're gonna got this rectangle shape. And next, I'm trying to thicken this with 2 directions, and each direction has a 2mm subtracted with this part. So if I click Control B to hide it, oh, at this moment you cannot say because it's covered it by this surface. Let's go into the future step. So next step is edge blend. So I give it the edge on this rectangle's cut. And this is make currently feature sketch 263 by if it towers to the top, you could see I intend to create this kind of bottom capsule shape. Next, I use the sketch I created to trim the surface I created before and left it these bottom areas. And next is the thickening with single directions and 2mm high, and boolean is now. Next is thickening. I thicken another by a boolean keep now, and in here offside is 0.5 to the top. And next is offside face. So I give an offside face 3mm to the inner. So it's gonna shrink the size. Next, I make a unite with this small piece and the beneath piece together. Next, I do edge blend, give 0.4 to the edge, and this one I continue give a 0.4. So I make this by giving a radius on the edge. Next is I Control T to copy it another button in here, and also do offside face because if you towards this direction, so you could see maybe this button is not very rich to this line, so I need to do an offside face. And then I used this XY plane to trim the body. So I hit the trim. So I hit the trim body here. Selected the body is this button, and select the face. You could see is this plane. So I got this shape. Next is I use this block to subtract this purple part, and doing offside face to shrink the size by 0.5mm. Next is sketch I created a small gaps in here to aims to divide these 2 buttons here. Next, I use Extruded to cut to divide this 2 button by a subtract with this button. Next, I do a chamfer. I do a chamfer on this edge with a 1mm, and then I do a radius with 1mm on the corner. And also I give edge blend 2mm on the circular shaped edge of it. And also I offside the surface 1 millimeters by this surface here, because I want to use this surface to trim this very ugly shape. Maybe I can hide it, the rest part, so you could see it very clear. Then sketch. I didn't see where is the sketch 284. Let's just move to a next step. In here. I'm trying to based on that surface I created before to make it thick 2 millimeters and hit it OK. And then because I do a thickness, so you could see this edge is not parallel, is not attached to this plane. So I used it replace face to replace this angled surface to a totally horizontal surface hit by OK. So this surface is zero distance attached to the yellow surface. And then doing a subtract to minus on this yellow part to trim additional part in here. And then, so before, if I hit the Control W, I show all solid parts and hide the shade body, sketch curved it, and the terms I created before. And also Control G, I'm gonna change this into a solid body and hit OK. So if I go into a mirror geometries, you could got this mirror shape. And also I need to hide it, this part, by hit Control B. So this is mirror geometries. I can also click menu and insert. There has associated copies. Let's choose mirror geometries here. Then, because it's mirrored, but it's not combined with each other's, so I need to unite two pieces. For example, this part with this part with this part, and the rest of them. And also I need to merge the button on the top, those button. And also I hit the Control W to hit the raster image that I don't want to show on the scenario. And also I can hit Control W to hide the datum's coordinate systems. And then I go this perfectly hand blenders modeling. Okay guys, thank you to watching the whole modeling tutorials.